All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Social Services Committee meeting for Wednesday, October 10th. Clerk, has the roll been taken?
The roll has been taken.
Are there any declarations of conflict of interest for any of the items appearing on the agenda today? Seeing none. At this time, I will ask the members if there are any items the committee wishes to separate for discussion purposes. Item 5.1, lease of 389 West Street, Brantford Fox Ridge to Six Nations of the Grand River Long-Term Care is already separated as we have a delegation. Councillor Carpenter?
6.1 and 6.2.
Okay, thank you. And could I get a mover and a seconder to place all of the items for consideration and consent on the floor to be approved that are not separated? Yeah. Councillor Sicoli and Councillor Oakley, thank you.
The item subject to the vote is the minutes. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Perfect. So before hearing the delegation this morning, I would like to remind those in the meeting today that the following rules of decorum as set forth in the city's procedural bylaw apply. No person shall display any sign or banner or placard in the meeting room other than the materials, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audio-visual aids necessary in connection with any presentation being made to council. All persons present shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or making any gesture that may be disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject in debate and shall not speak to any other subject, and no person shall applaud participants in the debate or engage in any conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. I would now like to welcome Dr. Greg Fraser, Six Nations of the Grand River elected council, who is here to speak to item 5.1, lease of 389 West Street, Brantford Fox Ridge to Six Nations of the Grand River Long-Term Care. If you would like to make your way up, you'll have 10 minutes, if there's no objections, what I'd like to do is allow up to 30 minutes for the presentation and the questions. Do I have?
Yes.
You have an objection? Oh, okay, support it. Okay, so if there's no objections, we don't need to move it. We can just carry on. That's perfect. Thank you. All right, so we'll have 30 minutes then, and you may go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you very much. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. It's really nice to see everybody again. I know we met a few times. I do have my colleague here, Councillor Amos Key Jr. here as well. The Chief Hill sends her regrets. She has been called away to the International Water Conference in Toronto to give the opening address there. There's up to about 3,000 delegates from across the world will be there, and she will give an opening address. So she does send her regrets. Otherwise, she'd be present here today. One of the things too is just to give you a Six Nations perspective. I know you have the information that's already in your packet and in your resolution, giving us some of the historical background, as well as moving forward, what the objective is for today. One of the things too is I would like to start by thanking the People Care at Delhi. As you know, it was on June 18th where we had that major flood, and we had to move our elders to their site, and it took, actually, we were moving them all the way until the middle of the night. We moved them into a brand new facility that they had there, but then shortly after we had to move them into an older facility. So that was a lot of trauma for our elders, moving like that back and forth and being so far away from home, being about 40 to 45-minute drive from the Six Nations. So that was something that was a really negative impact on our elders. And as you know, a lot of our elders are survivors from the residential school. So it was quite traumatic for them. And but we do like to thank Delhi because we kept them together, and that was very important. The other thing too is that it's really had a negative being so far away. It has been a negative effect on our community in terms of the family have been unable to visit. A lot of times when we visit the Delhi area, Delhi People's Care Facility, they often ask, okay, when can we go home? As you know, the building has been pretty much devastated to where 75 to 80% of that structure has been affected. And it doesn't look like it's going to be of any use, further use moving forward. We did have the opportunity to meet with the ministry and the deputy minister, Peter. I always make his mistake with his name, Kaftarian, and he was quite taken aback by the condition of that building. And he has also sent his support for any further arrangements that can be made so that we could move our people closer to home. So he was very positive in terms of the financial aspect as well. As you know, we're planning a new build, and hopefully that we can get help from the ministry in that regard as well. And that may take up to, it may take up to 3 years. We hope it doesn't. We're going to try to expedite that as quickly as possible. One of the other things too is we would really like to thank Brantford, the city of Brantford, because we know that that facility was going to be slated for another service in terms of homelessness, in terms of mental health addiction support, in terms of transitional housing. We have much the same problem here. I am as actually part of the council that's involved with monitoring the Glebe property. And of course, there's a lot of homelessness, addiction problems. Has been some violence up in there. So I do know all of the challenges that are required to see if we can help those individuals. And I do really commend the city of Brantford for taking the initiative to address those issues. And one of the last things too, is I'd like to say, is I think this is a great opportunity for Six Nations and Brantford to work together. I think a lot of it, again, we do have a lot of our homeless people in the city of Brantford. We're always looking to find services for them. But we also know it puts a lot of undue pressure on Brantford as well. We also know that we're working together to find a site for the new Brantford Hospital. I think that's something that's going to be very important moving forward. As you know, a lot of our community use the Brantford Health Services. And so it's really, we really like to thank the city of Brantford for inviting us to be part of that endeavor. And I know the site, I know it's a long way. I've been a member of a new build of a hospital in Toronto, and I know the challenges that are before you. And dealing with the ministry is not always that easy. Just one, I'd like to have my counselor, Amos Key, say a few words as well. So thank you.
Good morning, Council. I'd like to thank you all for having us here this morning and inviting us for this session. I'm Amos Key Jr., and I'm as well the chair of the Wellbeing Committee portfolio for Six Nations. And just wanted to give you an update of where we're going. We want to look at an integrated health system at Six Nations from prenatal to end of life. So we're putting pieces together for that. We want a full diagnostic center too, as well, with MRIs and CTs and all that. But I'm also just been asked to join the task force for looking for a new location for a hospital in Brantford, Brant County, and which will include Six Nations. So I'm happy to be a part of that as part of my portfolio. And I welcome that dialogue going forward because as you know, getting into this portfolio, I had to find out what exists, what assets do we have. First of all, we don't have a walk-in clinic even at Six Nations, urgent care or emergency care, like most municipalities in the province. And so I'm really concerned about that because our folks get to our hospital in Brantford here in an emergency ward without having gone through urgent care, walk-in or emergency care facility at Six Nations. So we end up all in the emergency services here in Brantford at the hospital, as well as Hagersville and Simpsonville and Norfolk. So I'm really concerned about that. We're going to meet with Jane Philpott, who's taken the lead on primary care in Ontario. we want to show her and explain to her our vision in the next little while for Six Nations of the Grand River. So again, this is one part of it for our seniors, and we welcome any kind of agreement that we can come with. And I echo what my colleague, Councilor Fraser, just mentioned, that the Deputy Minister was very supportive yesterday in our presentation with him, with trying to conclude an agreement with the city of Brantford. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Does anybody from the committee have any questions for the delegation this morning? Councillor Carpenter, go ahead, please.
You mentioned some homelessness on the Glebe property and some violence. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, in the previous council, in our 58th council, we did have a problem with 14 trailers, home trailers that were collected within the glebe at that time. And we discovered that there was a fentanyl operation, drug operation there, as well as human trafficking. And so it was quite a large criminal element that was going on within the glebe property, because it had not been monitored very closely over the years. And there was road access into that property. And so the previous chief, Mark Hill, he decided to present to each one of those people that were there within the glebe property, as it is owned by Six Nations of the Grand River Elected Council, that we could give them eviction notices. And that then took about 2 to 4, possibly all the way up to 6 weeks before they vacated. And we had to remove some of the trailers as well. So, and since then, we put a more of a secure area around that so that you cannot drive in there. But the problem is that it's such a very large area. It's not very well lit. We do get people drifting in and out pretty much constantly. We do have some people that set up tents there. If they're First Nations, we monitor there, or we send in our police periodically. And what will happen is we'll try to identify them. If they are First Nations or Six Nations, we try to use our services to help them. If there are Brantford people, we encourage them to use your services to help. But the thing is also is if we allow them to stay there, there's been fires, there's been violence. Some people have been accosted. So it's really not a safe center for anyone to stay there. It's almost a haven for a criminal element. So we have to monitor it frequently and ask any people, even if they're coming to stay for a day or two, we warn them and we ask them to leave because it's not physically not safe. And we do not have we cannot respond readily to any problem with fire, ambulance, or police.
And is there cross communication and collaboration with your services and our services?
Just through the chief's office, I think with the mayor. But that's it. I know the Brantford police are they patrol the area on the external portion. They're very easy to get along with, and we get some information, and I personally speak with them. And if there's any incidents, they can convey it to me and I can see if they can help. But that's to the extent of it. But if there's anything major, I'm sure our chief's office will contact the mayor's office.
Yeah, because it's concerning being very next to high school. Thank you.
Yes, we did. One day we did roll in there with, we knew there was some incidents of fires and stuff going on there and people were accosted. We did roll in there with 8 police cruisers, as well as our dog unit. We have a dog unit, we have a drug unit, and also we have a social service unit as well that comes with us. So we do that, but not as frequently as we should because our resources are limited. And of course, the distance is a problem.
Thank you. Maybe we can collaborate a little more on that. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I move on to Mayor Davis, I'll just remind the committee members, if we could discuss things that are in front of us today, that would be great. Go ahead, Mayor Davis.
So you're going to cut that off, but me. Just wanted to say briefly that in reference to what Councillor Dr. Fraser referred to. Yes, 2 summers ago, there was a large encampment there in trailers, and Mary Musson and her staff and Dave Weidrich and I attended at the request of the chief, and we assisted in that process. But we have to be careful, because the last thing I'll say about this, we fully want to cooperate, we are, but these are First Nations lands, and we need to be invited to attend and deal with whatever it is that they need in assistance. But so I'm going to switch. I'm going to ask you, Councillor Fraser, the facility at Fox Ridge. I understand that members of the Six Nations Wellbeing staff have toured the facility a couple of times. What do they think of it? Will it be adequate? Will it meet the needs of your elders?
Yes, just to backstep before I answer that part is that we did go into a facility that required some remediation at Delhi, which we did carry out, and it was successful. And it was we changed the product because it was such an old structure. Our facility is almost 45 years old, and theirs is 25 years old. So you can see there's as age takes part. So the feedback that we got from the tours in Fox Ridge were very positive. They were very impressed with the cleanliness, the maintenance, the size also of the structure, the location. It's very ideal for us, for our families that can visit. All in all, they thought that inspection wise, there was no issues, and that it seemed to be held at a very high standard in terms of cleanliness and maintenance. And I think that's something that will be put upon us if we can actually get a leasing arrangement, that I think would be a standard that we should keep as well.
And so for many of the family members and staff as well, to go to Delhi, that'd be about a 90-minute drive, about 90 minutes, depending where you are in the reserve?
No, it's more closer to 45, 50 minutes. In the winter, it's a little slower,
Right.
but yeah. But it's a little bit too far for some of our members to make it there.
And so the facility at Fox Ridge, that'd be about half the driving distance then for most of your members. Yeah. And so far as the staffing arrangement, so the intent is to lease a portion of this Fox Ridge facility, and then it would be Six Nations staff that would be taking care of the elders. Is that the concept?
Yeah, that would be exactly it. And that we would even probably do our own, like help with maintenance or do our own maintenance as well. I don't know in terms of the lease as it goes through the legal aspect of, I don't know if there'd be leaseholds involved or not. I did see the external portion of the facility with the chief. The chief couldn't make the walkthrough. But it's been, we will basically supply our own staff for them. And plus the staff that's already been with our long-term care facility. I think it's better for our community to have people that, they've been working with.
Yeah, I fully agree. And so lastly, the other government agencies that have to be involved. So the Ministry of Long-Term Care, the Ontario Ministry of Long-Term Care, I guess they need to be involved because they help provide funding. Do we have to have any federal authorities or departments involved, or was it just going to be the Ontario Ministry of Long-Term Care?
Yeah, often that's been offloaded to the ministry, to the province, and that's mainly who we deal with. They do our inspections as well. And of course, they're involved with the funding as well.
Okay. Any concerns about using Fox Ridge, or do you think it does meet the needs of your staff and the needs of your elders?
We have approximately 50 to 51 residents. I know there was a section of, we were just working out, we're actually in double occupancy or even more than that in a lot of the rooms. So now we're going to be going to single occupancy. And as you know, the cost of that per resident is higher. The ministry has stated to us that they would be willing to cover those costs if there is a difference from the cost of staying with 2 or even more in a room, that they would adjust that cost and supply that to us so that all those costs would be covered. That's the message we got yesterday. And of course, they're more than I would say positive in terms of funding, allocations.
Great. Thank you.
Counselor Carpenter, second speaking.
Yeah, there's no limit. Just wanted to encourage you to reach out to our local John Noble home once you're established in Fox Ridge, or any services you need or any collaboration, we can work together. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Counselor McCurry, go ahead.
Thank you. Welcome, gentlemen. You expect your folks will be staying in Fox Ridge until your replacement facility is constructed?
That is correct. The longer session, we did have some commitment by the ministry to aid us in the building of the structure. We do already have the infrastructure in place, and we also have the land set aside already. We had been planning for a build, right? But still looking for funding. But now there seems to be a promise to help us with that aspect as well as the funding portion. And then, of course, we have to supply again, the infrastructure, the land, the accessibility to that building, and we've got that in place.
So your feeling so far is the current building is completely unusable to be restored, renovated?
It's pretty much devastated, that building. The roof is still leaking. We do have structures that have been actually just dismantled. So we've taken apart pretty much 75% of the building. There's still mold issues in there, as well as the build of the property back 44 years ago or 45 years ago was such that it was at a level, almost at the level of the surrounding strait. But over time, we built up, that was the issue. We built up all the terrain around it, as well as the road. And so drainage, it was just an accident waiting to happen. Drainage has come right directly through all the entranceways. Windows were damaged as well. The roof, as you know, that building is we have to rely on a lot of federal funding to like 14 of our buildings were affected because of this flood. Most of them are back almost usable. Our own council house, the basement is not usable right at this point because we had sewage backup. Once you get sewage backup, and then of course that covers a lot more remediation costs as well due to health and safety. So that was a big issue on this particular building. What the future of this building is still up in the air.
Your new build would be on the same site?
No, it's going to be at a higher level. And we're looking, of course, at any drainage issues that might happen. So, no.
Excellent. I'm glad that we're able to help.
Right.
The relationship between our two communities has not always been perfect. In our time, certainly. And perhaps this is a way to continue to build on that goodwill between the two communities.
I just wanted to mention the response from the deputy minister a couple of times, more than once. He said it's shocking what he witnessed yesterday. So that kind of helps the cause in a way. So he was really committed to helping us in any way we can, or he can in his ministry, to help our staff. And I just want to, before I close, I want to thank the staff for all their briefing notes to us. This makes the decision to go into this agreement much easier. So I just want to thank all of our staffs for the well-written documentation and the site visits as well. So thank you very much.
All right, and with that, seeing no further questions, I thank you for your presentation, and we'll be dealing with this item very shortly. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you.
Yaman.
All right, the committee will now consider the items that were separated for discussion purposes. Could I get a mover and a seconder to place all of the separated items on the floor? Moved by Mayor Davis and seconded by Councillor Oakley. Thank you. So we'll start with item 5.1, as there was a delegation. Any discussion? Go ahead, Mayor Davis.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say that I think it's a very exciting and I think rewarding development for our community and the First Nations of the Six Nations of the Grand River. This council and the prior council, we together as a group and as individuals have been advocating for a change in the nature of our relationship with Six Nations, the Grand River, to determine what it is we can better do to support one another and help one another and be more true allies and partners as we deal with issues that are common to the entire region. And so this, I think, will be an excellent example of what we can do when we have members of the First Nations, and in particular the elders, and some of those actually having gone through this, the residential school system, and helping them live in an environment when their own environment on the Six Nations has been totally destroyed, and to help them provide for them a stable environment that's relatively close to their homes and their relatives and friends. I think it's a great example of what can be done when we work together to achieve a common goal. And a common goal is whatever we can do to improve the lives of our residents and the members of the First Nations, and doing so together in a supportive way. And so this is, I think, a very exciting example of what it is we can do. And I think it gives us a vision of what more can be done. Lastly, I'd like to say that a real note of thanks. I want to thank our staff, in particular, my chief of staff, Sasha Hill-Smith, because this came up at AMO, the AMO that I couldn't attend because I was bedridden. But despite that, we had our delegations from Brantford, and you were part of that, Councillor Samuel. But this was raised with my chief of staff by the staff of Chief Hill's staff, and we quickly acted on it. And also then, of course, bringing in Mary Musson and her team. I'm very grateful to all of them for how quickly they reacted and how they did it in a really positive way, realizing that there were some real time pressures, that the needs of the elders on Six Nations were, although being met in Delhi, that I think it's pretty clear the facility of Fox Ridge, since it was so recently a long-term care home, is a perfect facility, temporary facility for the elders of Six Nations. And also for us, it's a part of the building that probably would not be fully activated for another several years. That the part of the facility that's going to be used to expand our shelter system is a different part of the facility. And this is part of the facility that the elders would be using that likely would be vacant anyways. So it's a great use of the part of the facility that was going to be vacant for several years. And so this is just, I know the cliche is win-win. I can't imagine something that's more win-win than this one. So I'm very happy to support it. And I hope everyone else will be happy to support it too.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Now we'll go ahead with Councillor Sicoli and then Councillor Sless.
Yes, thank you. Chair Samuel, this is an excellent example of our two neighbors coming together to serve our elders, our community, and this is a result of a few meetings, some great collaborative meetings, coming together, working on a solution. Mayor Davis, myself, and Sasha Hill-Smith, meeting with Chief Sherry Lynn Hill and Linda Parker, and coming up with a solution that would serve all of us. And I think most people can recognize that this is so much more than just a lease. This is providing a safe, reliable, culturally supportive housing. More importantly, I think this is just one step of many that I hope that our two communities take together towards some true, meaningful reconciliation. So I do want to take a page out of what Mayor Davis was saying, and I think we really need to recognize the hard work of our staff here at the City of Brantford. Mary Musson and her team, I know how hard that you worked putting this together, and so quickly as well. And of course, Sasha Hill-Smith, Chief of Staff here at the City of Brantford, your passion is evident and your hard work should be celebrated on this file. So thank you very much for everything that you have done. And I look forward to moving forward on this. Thank you.
Councillor Sless, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Is there a time frame that we would see people moving in? Has that been established?
Good morning, Mary Musson, Commissioner of Community Services and Social Development. Through the chair, we have not established timelines yet. We are closing on the purchase of 389 West Street, also known as Fox Ridge, on October 30th. And as soon as the building is in our possession, then we can enter into a lease agreement. So once, if this report is approved, then staff will begin the necessary work so that we can expedite having the residents move in.
Okay. As I understand it, Mary, the portion in the area that would be leased out is an area that we probably wouldn't be dealing with for a number of years. This is probably a good thing from the city's perspective to have activity and have people living in it, as opposed to having a vacant building that would be susceptible to many things that we wouldn't want happening. Is that not true?
Through the chair, that is very much correct. Having a building sit vacant is not what we want. So being able to have a building occupied and actually serve the purpose it was originally intended for is a huge advantage to the city.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Carpenter, go ahead.
Thank you. So the lease would be for up to 3 years. Is that correct?
That is correct. Based on the discussions we've had with staff from Six Nations, we are estimating that the term would be for 3 years.
And the two wings that they would be taking up would be, are they the wings at the very front, towards the front of West Street?
No, through the chair, it would actually be the newer portion of the building. So that's considered phase 2. It's described in more detail on page 5 of the agenda package, but it would be the newer portion of the building that has a single rooms that their residents can use. And we would use up to 2 wings of the older portion of the building as needed.
Now, under the Long-Term Care Act, are the rooms suitable, meet the requirements under the Long-Term Care Act? For long-term care.
Through the chair, it is functioning still as a long-term care home, so I would have to assume yes, it meets all the requirements.
But that'll be part of the review when we do the lease to make sure that that's the case.
Through the chair, the legal team will review, and the Six Nations would have to review and make sure that all the LTC requirements are met. That would be an obligation upon Six Nations.
Okay, and when we move forward with the particular lease and we're doing the construction, how are we going to mitigate the noise with the construction with the residents living in, as it is their home?
Through the chair, that's an excellent question, and that is something that staff are already looking into to ensure that any constructions and renovations that we have to do would not disrupt the operations of the long-term care home.
And so we close on October 30th. When will we have an opportunity to go through the building as council or ward councilors or council as a whole?
Through the chair, that's something we can definitely look at. If anyone would like to have tours of the vacant building before it is occupied, then staff can arrange that.
And the part where the construction going on are those plans finalized?
Through the chair, no, they're not finalized yet.
Okay, so when they will be finalized, the ward council will get that information.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And speaking to this, of course, this is a wonderful opportunity for us to work with our neighbors, as we should be doing and continue to do. This is a tragedy that happened at Six Nations, and bringing long-term care into a long-term facility to help the long-term care First Nations people is an excellent thing to do, and of course the right thing to do. So I will be supporting this wholeheartedly to support our neighbors and our elders long-term care. And I'm hoping that we can have some collaboration between John Noble Home and them with any services or assistance they might need or questions they may have, because we're that close. We may as well work together. Thank you.
Councillor McCreary, go ahead, please.
Sure, thank you. The nature of the lease, will it be for the portion of the building occupied, or will it be on a per room basis?
Through the chair, we haven't finalized the details of the lease yet, but the legal team will take a look and determine what is the most appropriate.
Will our tenant be paying the operating costs, heat, electricity, and so on?
So that too, we will determine what is the most advantageous through the lease agreement, because if heat, utilities, etc. are not metered separately, then it would make more sense to include those costs in the lease. We will definitely take a look.
And we'll be moving folks in fairly quickly. Do you have currently the documents from the previous or current owner with respect to their operating costs of the building.
Through the chair, Clayton Paye, manager of housing initiatives. We've been given about a year's worth of utility invoices that give us a pretty good indication of how much costs are.
So are you fully confident that the lease that we conclude will look after the interest of the city of Brantford and its taxpayers?
Yes, I believe that we can develop a formula that would ratio the amount of utilities evenly.
So you're gonna consider though, having the, what it's called, is it a triple net lease? Is that what you call it when the tenant pays utilities on top of the base rent?
Yeah, we'll be using that.
Okay, I would caution that, you know, we certainly have a partnership with these folks at Six Nations, but we have to look after our own interests as well in this arrangement, and that should be that it doesn't cost the city of Brantford anything in terms of additional costs. So we've had a look at this fairly recently. Are we completely confident that we can be proud to turn this lease space over to the folks from Six Nations for their older adults to live in?
Through the chair, there should be no issues with that. The building is operating essentially to the last minute as an LTC, and it would just be a short gap between that.
Now, it seems to me when we initially talked about the purchase of the building, that our staff were going to have a inch by inch look at this building and produce a list of capital improvements that we're going to need to make over the next 5 or 10 years. Is there any of that is going to be needed immediately?
The BCA that has been conducted already indicates not for the next 2 years of any major work that has to be done. We will be commissioning a surveyor to go through and laser scan the building so we have an accurate mapping of it and also create accurate floor plans. Currently we're using dated floor plans. There is no as-built of it. So we'll be doing a complete scan of it and building up what the capital requirements will be for the next 5 years.
And with respect to the lease, our folks will be doing the maintenance within the building as opposed to Six Nations folks?
That has yet to be determined of what we would take care of. Ideally, usually we would take care of the shell and Six Nations would take care of the interior requirements as they need.
And do we get a look at the lease before it's executed? We as in the 6 of us or the 10 of us or the 11 of us, Social Services Committee or both councils?
I'll have to defer to legal on that.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'd have to defer to legal on that.
No, you don't. Just decide.
Good morning, through the chair. I think the intent is to keep this moving along, is to delegate the lease to the city solicitor, noting that we would be working together on that. If council wanted to do that, we'd need an amendment to the resolutions.
Yeah. And lastly, if I have some time, I'll speak again then later. Yeah.
I'll add you to the list again, Councillor McCurry. All right, seeing no other first-time speakers, it'll be Mayor Davis and then Councillor McCurry for a second time.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions rising out of the last series of questions. So the real estate transaction's going to close the end of the month. You get possession on the closing of the real estate transaction. Is that what's happening?
That is correct. We get possession on October 30th when the transaction
The
closes.
staff have already been through the building. You generally have an idea, pretty good idea what's in the building, its condition.
Very much. We've gone through the building multiple times.
Right. And who is going to be the purchaser?
So through the chair, right now, the city is the purchaser of 389 West Street. So the funding for the capital purchase is coming from the Affordable Housing Reserve, which is a city funded reserve. And we are using the Building Faster Fund grant that we received from the province last year of just over $3 million to help offset costs.
All right. And the detailed plan for your concept for the Fox Ridge property, we're going to be seeing that at this committee in November.
That is correct. Staff are finalizing the report and it will be in front of Social Services Committee in November.
Okay, great, thanks.
Councillor McCurry, second time.
Sure, thank you. I'd just like to congratulate the mayor on this initiative. And thank him for giving direction to staff to proceed with this initiative. In this current year, had a resolution before us passed in the prior cycle, that would not have been permissible because, of course, members of council were not going to be allowed to give direction to staff only through resolution of council.
With that, I'm going to call the vote.
All those in favor of item 5.1? Carried, thank you.
We'll now move on to item 6.1, and Councillor Carpenter, I believe you had that separated.
Yeah, 6.1 is the encampment report. Okay, thank you. Short form, acronym is a COBDN, right? So when we have our outreach team go out, who is our outreach team, and what are the qualifications of those individuals?
So through the chair, the encampment outreach team is comprised of 2 community initiative coordinators. These are social service or social service workers who go out and complete housing outreach. They are accompanied by members of the city's bylaw and security services team. So they would be bylaw enforcement officers.
So the 2 workers are, they have the people that do the outreach are social worker degrees.
Through the chair, the community initiative coordinators, they would hold social service worker diplomas or social work diploma degrees or other relevant degrees.
Okay, and when we remove people off property, as in the report talks about checking with the owner needs to get permission of his private property.
Through the chair, yes, if it's private property, municipal staff cannot go onto the property without receiving permission from the property owner. So until that is received, outreach cannot happen on the private property.
Okay, and we remove some of these individuals, we offer them places and we offer them opportunities to move out of the encampment and into shelter space, such as the hotels.
So through the chair, that is correct. When the encampment outreach team responds to an encampment, the very first thing that is always done is a shelter is offered, because looking at legal decisions that have been made by the courts, we need to offer appropriate sheltering. And so that is always the first step. Appropriate shelter is offered.
And our experience has been that over half decide to remain unsheltered.
I would say even more than half choose to remain unsheltered.
Do we know why that is? Do we have any understanding of why they choose to remain unsheltered?
Through the chair, Dave Weidrich, Director of Bylaw and Security. Every Friday we have a meeting with our partners and we go over all the people that we've tried to help. And last week, for instance, on the Friday meeting, 22 people we encountered, only 2 wanted help. So the numbers are very low for those that want it. Others are just, that's how they want to live. They don't want to go into a shelter. They don't want to go into a motel. It's just, this is the way they want to live. And we have to respect that.
Do those numbers go down dramatically in the wintertime? Like the more will take the shelter in the wintertime because of the weather?
We actually found the numbers were higher in the winter. For those that wanted to refuse, we weren't getting as many people as we thought. Actually, we spoke about our meetings. We were very shocked at the people that weren't wanting service.
And the 51%, or what you'd hire, you're saying that refuse, do not want to be sheltered. What percentage of them are female? Do we know?
Going through we don't identify people in our meetings.
By male or female?
Everyone has a number, a HIFAS number, and that's not in the.
Do we have an understanding that females do not feel safe in shelters? And have we had incidents of abuse with females in shelters? Have we we coordinate that information?
So through the chair, anecdotally, in general, people who are vulnerable, such as women, LGBTQ, indigenous peoples, they have had a higher level of negative experiences in shelters and other institutions as opposed to males and other populations. So yes, I would say anecdotally that women and vulnerable individuals are more hesitant to enter into a sheltering system because of past trauma and past experiences.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mayor Davis.
A question for staff. The encampment team, there are a number of different members. Could be somebody from the Grand River Community Health Center, could be somebody from Native Housing, but primarily our staff would be the two outreach workers, the two community initiative workers, and that's jointly funded through the city and the county, of course, those staff. But we also include in our team two city bylaw staff. So how do you handle that when there's something in the county and there's a call from the county for the service of the encampment team?
Through the chair, excellent question. Working with the county, we duplicate services for the outreach coordinators. They do attend sites in the county when requested by the county. We have a good relationship with the director of bylaw services, and so the community initiative coordinators have deployed jointly with the county's bylaw staff to respond to emergencies such as at the Plaza Motel and Amir's Motel recently.
And in terms of the winter sheltering plan for this coming winter, I think you have a couple of issues from last winter. There was an issue about, I think the overnight warming, and that SOAR was doing it at their facility on, I think, Rodden Street or is Murray Street. Anyway, so what's the plan this year for that? Temporary warming.
So through the chair, we do have a winter sheltering plan with the report that's in front of committee. And staff can speak to that when that item's on the floor.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I'll stick with the encampment team. So in terms of the numbers that you have in the report, I noticed the number between 2023 and 2024 went up by I think from 108 to 154. Do you have any handle on what the number is for 2025 and why the increase?
So through the chair, between 2023 and 2024, the encampment outreach team did not start until July 4th of 2023. So for the first half of 2023, housing outreach was conducted by a third party. And when we did an analysis, that's when we noted the gaps and the issues with service delivery. So from the latter half of 2023, that's when we had an increase in response to services. And then throughout 2024, we conducted the services entirely. So that is why there would be an increase between the 108 clients encountered and then the 154. We had better data.
So in terms of data, that it would look, do I have it right that the reasons for why someone would be on the street and an encampment, 80% of that would be due directly to drug use, a drug issue, or a serious mental health issue?
So through the chair, it's a very complex issue. I would suggest that the majority, 85–90%, have concurrent disorders. So both mental health and addictions concerns happening at the same time. Many of them also have other mental health concerns as well as physical health concerns. But the majority self-report as substance use being their number one concern as to why they're homeless.
How many are there just because they can't find accommodation?
It's hard to say how many are there because they cannot find a place, but I would say that the majority of people who are wanting help are assisted by our community initiative coordinators and can find shelter within 1 to 2 days.
And one last question to Mr. Weidrich. Can you give us two examples that you think show the dedication of your staff and some really inspiring examples of some of how they've been able to change people's lives?
Through the chair, Wow, we have many good stories. The
two best.
we had a young couple who actually made minimum wage, were saving up for their first and last month's rent. We supported them throughout the summer, and September 1st, they actually moved into their apartment. And they're doing well. We've had people who were down and out, lost everything. We got them into housing. They've gone back to school and actually have visits with their children now. So that's just two of probably dozens that we can think of in the last 2.5 years.
Thank you. Now I'll go ahead with Councillor Sless, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How do we define an encampment? Is that one tent with people living in it? Or if there's 4 tents, is that also an encampment? I'm just trying to get a handle on the number of encampments, and I'm not sure what constitutes an encampment.
So through the chair, as soon as there is a structure, that is considered an encampment. So one tent can be an encampment. If you have 4 tents in the same area, that can be an encampment as well.
Okay, so when we see that I'm just looking now in September, 23 encampments that we attended, that's not necessarily 23 tents. That could be many more tents because they could be in clusters. Is that how I read this?
Through the chair, that is correct. So we go by sites. So in the encampment tracking tool that staff use to track and resolve encampments that are reported, we can have 1, 2, or 3 or multiple tents reported at one site. That site would be considered one encampment.
Okay, and the other concerning number for me is the majority that refuse assistance or help of any kind, I guess, really. By doing that, are they then allowed to sleep wherever they choose to sleep, on benches during the day, on leaned up against buildings downtown, that type of thing? That's acceptable?
Through the chair. So if they do refuse, the courts have allowed us to issue trespass notices on public property, which we do. We give them 24 hours. They move, we clean up the site. Private property, we act as agents for the private property owner. But you are correct. They are allowed to go to a park. They're allowed to be on a bench, just like you and I. There's nothing illegal for them to do that. We get many calls weekly of people. There's an encampment, and when we show up, it's someone with a shopping cart sitting on a park bench. That's not an encampment, and that's not in the numbers.
Is laying on that bench sleeping, that's acceptable?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is sitting on the sidewalk up against a building sound asleep, is that legal?
Our nuisance bylaw in the city of Brantford says impeding pedestrian traffic on the sidewalk. So if you have to step over them or walk around them, then that's against the bylaw. But it's not arrestable. It's just a ticket.
Okay, so there's virtually nothing we can do if somebody decides they want to lay down on the sidewalk up against a building and they're not impeding traffic walking on the sidewalk. That's quite acceptable and legal.
It's legal, but doing nothing isn't our option. We would go and tell the person to move.
Okay. We can tell them or we can force them?
We can tell them.
Okay, but they don't have to.
Correct. And then it becomes a nuisance ticket.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Councillor Oakley, please.
Thank you. Through the chair to staff. Sort of seeing on this number of the 51% of people who remain in a shelter refuse services. I'm curious as to the reason given to Councillor Carpenter was that they're simply these people didn't want to be served. However, and this group of people just doesn't want to be served. However, in other jurisdictions that have more successful housing initiatives than we do here in Brantford and the county, or within Ontario or Canada more broadly, that number hovers under 20%. So and given that most research suggests that there's that the idea that there's service resistance is mythological. I'm curious as to if this is not just an indication that we are failing to offer viable services to these residents in one form or another. Either that there's barriers to entry, previous experience, so on and so forth. I would suggest that the number of 51% of people simply cannot possibly be served would be erroneous to suggest.
So through the chair, I can speak high level and then potentially Mr. Weidrich will finish up for me. The people who are refusing services, they are choosing not to accept services that are provided. I would have to say that the city of Brantford has a very fulsome housing stability plan with many options that people who wish to receive services can choose from. Staff have supported people even residing at encampments until they can receive more appropriate supportive or permanent housing options, and they have been successfully transitioned into those housing options. The folks who are refusing services have chosen to not utilize any of the services available, and that includes receiving portable housing benefits, to move into apartments, or to move into transitional or supportive housing. Clients do have the right to choose their own destination, and it's very similar to an emergency room where someone may choose to go against medical advice and leave. There are people who will choose not to accept the services that are available within the city and continue to live rough.
Through the chair, I would like to give an example. Just last week, we had people at one encampment on private property. We got the owner's permission. We went in, we tried to help them. They refused. They were trespassed. They left. They went to a city park. We attend. We said, do you want service? They said, no, you can't sleep in the city park. They were evicted from there. They went back to another private property, set up their tents there. This was my staff following these people from property to property and being abused by them. They do not want service, but by law, we have to offer service as opposed to just trespassing them. And so the people refusing do not want to be helped.
Okay, and moving on to Councillor McCurry, please.
Chair, thank you. I guess it's a failing of society that people end up in these unfortunate circumstances. And it's even sadder when we visualize that people will choose to live in a feral manner rather than accept the help that we can offer, regardless the level of help that may be available here or elsewhere as a comparator. And you know, our compassion, I think, has a limit. We all have compassion for these folks. For most of them, it's not their fault that they're where they're at. Because as we've learned, they've got multiple issues going on in their heads. Probably all of which started very innocently one day and culminated in people not wanting to be helped and preferring to live wild. But there is a limit, I think, to what we can bear, to what the taxpayer can pay. I don't see a reference in the report to the total cost to the city of Brantford. Is there a number that's readily available in terms of what we expended in 2024, even if it's just in terms of our staff hours?
Well, through the chair, so from the Housing and Homelessness Services Department, there's 2 permanent full-time employees who are dedicated to encampment outreach. This roughly transcribes into approximately $250,000 just in salaries and benefits for these 2 staffing positions. There's additional costs that come with operating this program. All of the program costs, the staffing is a municipal tax base funded, and then program costs would come from the federal Reaching Home federal grant funding stream or from the provincial homelessness prevention program grant funding stream.
Would it be onerous to request of staff for a full financial reporting of our expenditures with respect to dealing with this issue, including Mr. Weidrich's staff, including incidentals, including our folks, as well as have a breakdown in terms of how much is on our local taxpayers' city pocket and how much is on their provincial pocket? Would that be something readily producible?
Through the chair, that should be no problem. We can have a memorandum circulated.
And would the chair accept that the staff are going to do that, or would the chair require a resolution?
I think the staff had offered to do a memo would be perfect.
Thank you very much, and thank you to staff. And it's not an easy job. I mean, we've all heard the abuse that our folks take from folks who are in unfortunate circumstances in the city of Brantford. And it's certainly a job that's worthy, but it's a job that's generally thankless as well. And I guess we can offer our thanks for the work that's done.
All right, moving on to Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you had asked me before I read this report, what's the major cause of homelessness, I would have said probably 95% of it would be financial. So I was a little bit shocked to see the self-reported causes of homelessness. And as Mayor Davis pointed out, close to 80% is caused by, according to the people that use it, or that were asked, substance abuse and mental health. Is that similar, do we know, to other municipalities, and has this changed over time? First question.
So through the chair, I would not be able to compare data to encampments in other municipalities. The city of Brantford has a more robust tracking system than a lot of other municipalities have. So I don't think we could access that data rapidly or freely. What I can compare it to is previous point in time counts that are conducted by community entities across Canada. And it is very similar to other municipalities throughout the nation where substance use and mental health are predominantly the major causes of homelessness.
We all agree, I think, without saying, but I'll say it, we don't want homelessness. If we could prevent it, we would. And to that end, we're throwing literally wheelbarrows full of money at affordable housing, trying to build more houses. I wonder, it's a subjective question, but I wonder if we shouldn't maybe be throwing a little more money at mental health, substance abuse. Any thoughts from staff on that?
So through the chair, addictions and mental health concerns are very prevalent. However, that is a provincial responsibility, so that would not be coming through the Housing and Homelessness Services Department. I would wholeheartedly agree that a provincial investment in addictions and mental health services, especially for the city and the county, is very much needed. We did apply for a heart hub with SOAR Community Services. That was unsuccessful, unfortunately, but we do need those services.
Okay, that's the conclusion I'm drawing from looking at that, but okay, I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other first-time speakers, I'm going to go on to Councillor Carpenter.
Sorry, I thought you were saying seeing no other speakers. Yeah. Councilor Miller raises a good point. The issue is that the province is not in funding addiction treatment centers. Every city should have addiction treatment center, and mental health services should be increased, and the funding for it should be increased. Our property taxpayers are paying it, and our citizens are paying the price because they're homeless. They become addicted with mental health as a result of the province really just not doing our job. So, I'll say publicly, Wilboma, let's get going. Come on. And the only other thing I want to add is the 51%, which is higher, that refuse homelessness, probably as a result of mental health issues and addiction. Next time this comes back, I'd like us to attempt to ask them why, if we can. Why don't you want services? And just sort of get some collection, some kind of an idea of why it is. And you may not get an answer, but it's worth, I think, to be added to the report the next time it comes forward. Otherwise, thank you for the work that you've been doing. Appreciate it.
Mayor Davis for the second time.
Yes. So, Madam Chair, if the only reason why people were on the street or living on the street, living rough as some call it, if it was only having to do with financial issue, I can't find a home, the solution would be real easy. It would just be simply building housing units. But we know that's not the answer because 80% of them have an issue. The core issue for them is usually rooted in severe mental health issue. And I'm talking really severe mental health issues that can't be dealt with through, a day counseling, and probably need some kind of residential care, or it's a really serious substance use issue, primarily fentanyl. So I want to know from staff, of the 51% that decline services, what percentage of those individuals would have an issue involving substance use or severe mental illness. We know generally it's about 80%. What about that subcomponent that doesn't want services?
From the subcomponent, I would say anecdotally, we can confidently say close to 100%. A lot of the refusals are due to either an inability to trust the system, past poor experiences, but then they're compounded by the addictions and mental health concerns that the person or household is also experiencing. And so that has caused them to refuse services and oftentimes not wanting to even engage with any type of staff.
Okay. So what type of service would be attractive to them? Or what type of service do they need? Assuming you want everyone to lead useful, productive, healthy lives.
Through the chair, a service that would be very much helpful would be one that is all encompassing, that would not only provide sheltering indoors in appropriate situations, but would immediately address the addictions and mental health concerns too, and would be an appropriate and safe location for people to be able to receive any type of medical services that they need, whether it's medication, addressing mental health concerns, and also a place where they can address substance use concerns to decrease their use or detox from the substances they're using.
So if you had that on offer, and we do have that to some degree at Marley now, but if you had like housing, transitional housing, you had full rehabilitation services, medical services, would require them to enter into like the system and get all the treatment and care that they need to recover and lead a useful life, how many of them would take it? 51%.
Out of the 51%, it would be very hard to quantify which ones would take it. It would take a lot of work with building trust and rapport from the staffing situation to work with these individuals to bring them inside. They wouldn't, ideally, most of these households would work very well in a supportive housing model, which is what is being described. However, it is giving them the confidence to trust that they will receive the help that they need.
Right. And would it be helpful? It would also be helpful if the province would fund a treatment hub for our community. I assume that would be helpful, would it?
Yes, very much so.
And we weren't approved in the first round, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Okay, thank you.
And back to you, Councillor Ripley.
Thank you to the charter staff. Just to sort of follow up on sort of what Mayor Davis is suggesting here and sort of my previous comments in regards to I suppose my skepticism over the number of people who are refusing services. I would suggest what Mayor Davis here that is suggesting is sort of what I'm suggesting that we lack. And what other jurisdictions, such as, for example, Finland, has in abundance, in folks voluntarily taking up those sort of treatment facilities. And I think it would be important to note here that, in an example like Finland, you have the federal, provincial, municipal level governments all working in tandem, and putting forward their best foot in terms of funding, which I think we can acknowledge here does not happen. We are putting our best foot forward from a municipal standpoint, but the federal and provincial governments have abdicated that responsibility thus far. So I think that would be important to highlight onto why we have such a high rate of folks refusing services is the lack of facilities as suggested by Mayor Davis.
Point of correction, if I may. Yes. Yep, that's not exactly what I was saying. The point I was making is that's correct for some, but there's also some that want to lead a lifestyle that no matter what you offer them, they'll want to lead that lifestyle.
Okay, with that, before we move on from this item and call the question, I just wanted to say that I wanted to thank the Encampment Network for all of the positive impact that you continue to have on our community. And with that, we'll call the vote.
All those in favor of item 6.1? Carried, thank you.
All right, thank you. And now we're going to move on to item 6.2, Housing Stability Winter Sheltering Plan. And Councillor Carpenter, you asked to have that separated.
Thank you. I'm glad I've separated these items. We've had lots of debate, discussion on them, what wouldn't otherwise have happened. So I'm pleased that that's the case. This is dealing with the emergency shelter system. So with the loss of Grand River Estates, how many beds were lost with Grand River Estates?
Through the chair, originally when we were still funding Grand River Estates, we had 30 beds that were funded by the city. Through a report that went to Social Services Committee, I believe in 2024, we were granted permission to wind down that funding through attrition. And at that point in time, there was approximately 26 residents. As of the beginning of October, there are no more residents being subsidized at Grand River Estates.
So did Grand River Estates fail because we wound down our funding, or was there already issues there?
Through the chair, staff were not privy as to the reasons why they decided to cease operations as of November 2025.
Okay, and so the funding there has been shifted, so I'm glad to see the Blessing Center is involved. I think they're doing some good work, but they're just going to provide a couple of hours of warming ability in the extreme weather events, right?
Correct. It's not going to be limited just to extreme weather events. The Blessing Center has been in discussions with staff and they are going to extend the hours of operations. The time is still to be determined, but they will be providing a space throughout the winter months. So from November 1st until March 31st, where people can access their services, they can access food and drink, they can have community there, but most importantly, they will also be provided with information on how to access resources within the homelessness.
And the Blessing Center is looking to buy the property that they're now occupying, where we are aware of that.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. And we would direct them to wherever we might see resources for them to do that, I would think, because it's good for the community.
Yes.
Okay, the 6 additional beds available at Rosewood House. How does Rosewood House all of a sudden have 6 additional beds? Is there just rooms that weren't being used or beds that aren't being used? How does that happen?
So through the chair, because we received some grant funding last December through the Reaching Home funding stream, we were able to work closely with Rosewood House and they were able to put 6 additional beds into their existing building and they've done all the appropriate permits and such.
So do they have room to, does that mean they have room to add additional beds if there was additional funding?
They had room to add those 6 additional beds, yes.
So does that mean they're maxed out at the 6? I'm trying to get the idea, if we had space for 6 additional beds, why weren't 6 additional beds there in the first place? And we're just waiting for funding.
So through the chair, what I do understand is ongoing operational funding is necessary. So the way we have been able to add these 6 additional beds into the shelter system is that Rosewood received the grants for the capital costs and our community initiative coordinators who do encampment outreach will actually provide the case management services for those 6 additional beds instead of Rosewood staff.
No, but so there's services gaps with sheltering for this winter. So we're continuing to use motels at a cost, I believe, of $3,600 a month. When we use the motels, is there a requirement of the motel to provide services like any motel would provide anybody that's renting space?
So through the chair, the requirement of the motel staff would be to provide the same services that they would provide to any motel guests. And then people who are in the homelessness system, so if they're in a subsidized bed, then it's either Housing Resource Center or Community Initiative Coordinator, encampment outreach staff providing the case management.
So when I rent a motel, like, they come in and change the bed sheets, they bring new towels, those sorts of things. How are we assured that they're doing that?
So through the chair, we have to rely, unfortunately, on the self-report from the residents who are using those services. If staff do become aware that they are not being provided the services required, then we do advocate on their behalf to the motel owner.
Is this not something we can require the motel in agreement with the motel owners to provide and prove they provided? Because the reason I'm raising this, because we recently had an issue where there was a hostage taking in one of the hotel rooms, and they were hostage taking for over a week. If we were having an inspection, we might not have that.
So through the chair, I cannot comment on the hostage taking as they were not clients within our homelessness system.
Oh, they weren't in our homeless room.
No, They were not part of our homelessness system. However, what I can tell you is that we do require the motels to provide the same level of service, but we cannot enforce it if we don't know it's not happening.
So when we put people in the motels, we tell them what the hotel's obligations to them are?
We tell them that if they're not receiving the services that they should receive, they should be reaching out to our staff because our staff are connecting with them regularly.
Well, we give them a list of services they're supposed to receive?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Next we have Councillor Celeste, please.
Yes, thank you. It's the number that jumped out at me was the security cost for the Housing Resource Center at $1,000 a day, $150,000 for 5 months. What are we buying for that kind of money? What kind of security is that?
So through the chair, that is on-site security guards that SOAR Community Services has contracted.
How many are on there? That 1,000 a day. I don't know what a security guard makes, but that'd be an awful lot of security guards walking around then, is there?
It's up to 150,000 for the winter sheltering months. So that's from November 1st until March 31st. Any
Right.
funding that they would not use would remain with the city.
Okay. Typically, do they use it all?
So typically, so last year, the average cost was approximately 30,000 per month for the security services. So we were
Right.
estimating at 5 months, that would work out to 150,000.
Right. And I just want, that was my question, Mary, was the $30,000 is $1,000 a day. How many security guards would be employed for $1,000 a day?
I would have to go back to SOAR Community Services, but my understanding is it's one full-time security guard for 24 hours a day.
And that costs $1,000.
This is the estimate staff received from SOAR Community Services.
Wow. Okay, I think that would be worth looking a little closer at. That seems exorbitant, but I guess it is what it is. But I would certainly like that looked into because it kind of jumps off the page when you look at it. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And moving along to Mayor Davis, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I can talk about that as I think both you and I can. The SOAR facility is located in East Ward, and certainly the residents in East Ward would tell you the money is well spent because the housing center, there are going to be people that hang around it and causes some problems for the neighborhood. And so the security that's there is not just inside the building, it's also outside the building to try and ameliorate some of the impacts that those activities can have on surrounding neighbors. And if you don't do it, then you're going to find your local neighborhood will not accept the facility. So it's a critical part of any of these kinds of operations to always be mindful of security, not just inside, but also outside. Question for staff, some of the issues we had last year, people being discharged from the healthcare system and, let's say they have a need for some kind of daily nursing care or the attendance of a nurse or they need assistance care. What happens and they don't have a house? They've lost their housing unit that they had, maybe in the hospital for a couple of months and they've lost their housing. How do we deal with that situation?
So through the chair, in a perfect world, discharge planning with the hospital starts at admission. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people in those situations where they are admitted to the hospital for an extended stay and then that they lose their housing or their medical conditions have gotten to a point where they cannot return to the house that they were in because it's inappropriate for their needs. There is a complex case management table that the city, SOAR Community Services, other coordinated access partners, so this is like emergency shelter partners, as well as the hospital sits at. And these cases are brought forward to the complex case table to case manage and ideally find an appropriate discharge plan for them. Unfortunately, what happens is that oftentimes there is an emergent situation where that person has been discharged into homelessness and SOAR Community Services then tries to work rapidly to find appropriate sheltering. Sometimes this means that the person does have to be placed in a motel temporarily, so that medical services can attend. So this can be wound care, whatever the CCAC staff are called nurses, and they have to provide on-site medical services at the motel until an appropriate place is found. Unfortunately, our emergency sheltering system, we do not employ PSWs, we do not employ nurse practitioners, so none of the emergency shelters can provide medical care that is needed.
Yeah, so, or are they going to long-term care? Yeah. So another question for you, and that is, in regards to oh, lost my train of thought. In terms of those that, yes, okay, so with Fox Ridge, I know we're planning to do the expansion in a couple of different stages, and we'll hear all about that in November. But do you see over, say, the next 4, 5, 6 years, as that plan rolls out in various stages, that there will be a reduced need for motel accommodation?
Through the chair, absolutely. The intent, especially with the lease agreement with Six Nations, is to focus heavily on the populations that are currently not served by the emergency sheltering partners. So these are families, these are medically vulnerable individuals, these are people who have been marginalized, and focus on those populations first to have them receive emergency sheltering and transitional housing at Fox Ridge.
Great, thank you.
Councillor McCurry, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can you remind me, my memory is not what it once was. When we pay a motel for accommodating a citizen in need, do we also pay the municipal accommodation tax?
Through the chair, we don't know that for sure, but we can get back to you on an answer.
I just don't recall it. I don't think we do, but it would be worth knowing. And if we do, perhaps there's some other, not to make too bad a pun, some other accommodation we could make. With respect to the Blessing Center, I get negative commentary fairly regularly about the impact that operation has on the immediate residential neighborhood. I wonder if staff are aware of that.
So through the chair, in our discussions with the Blessing Center, they are aware of the concerns that are being brought forward by the neighborhood. They try and mitigate it as much as possible, but they also realize too that the client group that they serve is marginalized and vulnerable, and many of them do have substance use and mental health concerns. The Blessing Center staff do try and mitigate the impact to the surrounding neighborhood as much as possible.
I would suggest that the immediate neighborhood feels vulnerable as well. And I think that's a discussion that really needs to happen with the folks at Blessing Center. There are courses of action that they've suggested that maybe we can accommodate. Okay. And I'm looking at the 2 FTEs at SOAR to support additional intake demands from November 1 to March 31, $58,000 for a 5-month period. That's like almost $6,000 per person. Are these senior managers?
Through the chair, one is for a supervisor position and the other is for a frontline staffing position.
So supervisor to supervise one person?
No, there's additional staff already at 73 Murray Street. This would be to increase their complement so that they can work through the additional demand for service.
Okay. And that's what we refer to as the Housing Resource Center, or is that the location on Elgin Street?
Correct. It's 73 Murray Street. So the emergency sheltering services as well as the Housing Resource Center are co-located.
Okay. And the number that we're looking at here, Mary, the nearly $300,000, is that our entire expenditure with respect to winter sheltering? Or is that simply a top up?
Through the chair, that's a top up. So that was money that was allocated to the Grand River Estates contract that we have now been able to reallocate. So that's all homelessness prevention program grant funding being reallocated.
Okay. So that comes out of the local taxpayers' provincial pocket?
It comes out of the taxpayers' provincial pocket.
Okay. And is there any municipal pocket expenditure in addition to that.
We would have to get back to you on that. There is a municipal tax cost.
If not too onerous. Thank you.
Counselor Miller, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, to staff, how many homeless people would be taking up hospital beds because they don't have a place to go to get proper, care at any given time?
Through the chair, unfortunately, I cannot provide that data. That would be data that the hospital has.
Okay, because Mayor Davis asked what becomes of them, and so one of the things that becomes of them is sometimes they aren't released from hospital when somebody that had a place to go would be released, and sometimes they're kept in a hospital. We think security is expensive at $1,000 a day. Well, I think at $1,500 a day in a hospital, that's also expensive. Unfortunately, that comes out of provincial coffers, not municipal coffers. So maybe there is a way, and it's not for this meeting, but maybe there's a way where we can find some place for those medically that have medical issues could go to save the taxpayer money. But again, that's for another day. But I just wanted to bring that up, that sometimes they just don't get out of hospital when they should. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I just had one question myself for you, Mary. Could you speak to our capacity within the shelter system last year and just talk about how that was a little bit?
Through the chair, absolutely. So looking at page 6 of the report or page 31 of the agenda package, the two charts actually show the occupancy that happened during the 24-25 wintering season. So this is from November 1st of 2024 until March 31st of 2025. On average, the emergency sheltering system, so these are the contracted bed spaces, operated at 98% capacity throughout the wintering months. And if you look at chart 2, the average number of motel rooms used per night, February 2025 was our greatest usage month with approximately 29 motel rooms in use on any given night. So the sheltering system was never over capacity. We were always at or below capacity during the 24-25 wintering season.
Perfect, thank you. It's good to know that we were never full. And with that, I see no further speakers and we'll call the question.
All those in favor of item 6.2? Carried, thank you.
All right, thank you. So at this time, there are no resolutions, no notices of motion, and so we will adjourn the meeting. Have a great day, everyone.